clarify why the lion diet works so well for autoimmune problems. You see, this is just a name. It does not equate to a lion's diet. It means a diet consisting of only beef, salt, and water. And it is considered out there by the human people that use their rationale instead of their senses and instinct as the ultimate eliminatory diet. But is it so? You see, an actual carnivore's diet, in which a lion is included, is by nature to start at least 10% fat by volume. It appears that lions actually even consume 15 to 30% fat per meal in terms of volume. This diet was invented by accident, but a thankful accident, by Michaela Peterson, the daughter of Jordan P. Peterson. Dr. Peterson has a problem. He has gum disease, which is incurable. He has depression, all of these other symptoms. And he goes on this diet, and lo and behold, slowly but surely, all of his symptoms goes away. But not all, actually. He has massive sugar cravings. He wants to consume ice cream. Do you see where this is going? He is craving energy because he doesn't have too much, and he is craving fat. He is not running off of fat as his body fuel. He, by going below 10% fat, is actually in glucose burning, just like everyone else he has been doing by consuming a high carb diet. But how so? Because when you don't consume enough fat, your protein, meaning the muscle meat that he consumes, will be converted through a process called gluconeogenesis into glucose. And by doing so, it leaves your body in sugar burning mode, and because meat itself, even through that conversion, doesn't give you too much sugar, you need to consume a massive amount of meat in order to get just basic enough amounts of energy. Just by increasing his fat, not too much, you mean 10% by volume, it's a tenth of what you see in your plate, it's not too much. You will go out of glucose burning and into fat burning called keto. The lion diet, if not fatty enough, will be a glucose burning diet, just as the carnivore, fake carnivore diet. You need to do as carnivores do to be in ketosis. So what do carnivores actually eat? They eat all healthy animals, by far for the most part. They might occasionally find some eggs, and of course they'll eat them. They might seasonally consume some fruits. If they stumble upon, and I'm talking about bears, a beehive, they will raid it. But that is seasonal, occasional, sporadical. But as a daily diet, it's not animal based, it's all healthy animals. Some animals, of course, because they are not good enough hunters, they have to scavenge, just like some do. What does whole mean? To start, it means raw, it means unprocessed. By cooking your beef, you're processing your meat. Thus, the typical lion diet is a processed food diet, just like every other diet out there. So let's look at the salt, for example. Okay, all animals don't have salt in them. There is not a shaker inside of the body. But let's get to that part. Why do they need or do they to consume salt? You see, when you consume whole healthy animals, you go for raw muscle and fat, just like they are doing with their beef steaks. But they are also consuming organs and marrow and blood. And if you consume the whole animal raw, you will get higher amounts of sodium and chloride, the two components of salt, in higher amounts if you only consume the muscle and fat. You see, blood especially has a high sodium concentration, and even chloride is within these food families. What does healthy mean? And now we're getting to why it works. You see, if you all of your life consumed wild-fed meat, fish, eggs, even seafood, if they were all wild-fed, no freaking way you would get a sensitivity to any of those. Impossible. But because typical pork, typical poultry, typical fish, which is farmed, typical eggs, which are from non-wild fed, actually feed-fed chicken that are fed corn and soy, that is genetically modified, even worse. We develop sensitivities to those foods. Why? Because there are toxins in them that damage our bodies. And our bodies takes note. But it doesn't take note of the toxins themselves. It takes note of the protein that was attached to the toxins. Just like if a criminal out there does something less ideal, damages someone or something, the police doesn't look after next time for his weapon, they look for his face. You see what I'm getting? But when it comes to ruminants, and they call it beef to simplify, but it's any ruminant meat and salt and water. This is the lion diet. When it comes to ruminants, they have 4 compartments in their stomachs. They filter out very well whatever they eat. Sure, their tissues, their organs, the fat, the marrow, the blood will be tastier and thus healthier if they consume a wild diet, meaning grass, green grass, which is full of water. To confirm that we must consume raw for optimal health. If you give even hay, which is dried grasses, to even ruminants, they will produce less milk, meaning they are less healthy. They are mostly healthy even if you don't know what they were fed. Some, like fast food users, have been fed antibiotics. They are supplemented, if you know what I mean, but still they are mostly healthy. But I recommend that you cook for safety, to make sure those toxins in their supplements are gone, and even the ones from their feed that might not be enough broken down by their rumen and complex digestive system. So the lion diet, which is just a name, works because people with severe autoimmune issues have nothing more then a whole bunch of antibodies, meaning mugshots of criminal foods within their system, and thus every time they consume meat, even if it's good pork, good poultry, good fish, meaning wild fed, good yolk, they are sensitive. Why? Because the body starts attacking itself, not on purpose, but it starts attacking those proteins, and as a not so ideal consequence, just like when a law enforcement to catch a criminal might break some windows or whatever, it's your immune system will slightly attack itself, break itself in the hopes to destroy these proteins, which are not the main cause of problem, but they were associated with toxins because these type of animals are fed toxins. So you have to understand that if you are very sensitive, you can still do an IgG food sensitivity test, IgG, and you will know that besides ruminants, if there are some type of, for example, fish or meats that you are completely tolerant, completely well consuming, as long as they're wild fed, there is nothing inherently wrong with pork or chicken or fish that the ruminants are so much better. Sure, ruminants are mammals, meaning they have better nutrition for humans, just like seals, for example, do, because they are closer to our body. They are red meat. But don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. After you do the test, then you will know. And if you go, and I actually am pretty sensitive with foods because I did a lot of damage to my body in my earlier years. Just the other day I was invited to a place, and even though I typically consume muscle with the fat, I might consume a little bit of liver or some other organ that I might find. I consume marrow as a bonus to the fat, which is typically very low in muscle meat, in the steaks. And whenever I get a chance, which is rare, I consume some ruminant blood, typically from cows, which is what's available. But goats and sheep are also pretty available in a lot of countries. So what I mean for you to grab is that even though I do this and raw mostly every single day, I was invited to a function and I ate cooked ruminant. It was beef. I have no clue. It didn't have any fat, mostly. It was just the muscle. I don't know what it was fed. It was cooked, so I felt safe and I ate it. And there was a little bit of codfish, which is a wild fed fish, and it's quite salty even. And I had an amazing pleasure eating those foods, and I felt great afterwards. I only drank water, so what entered here was only wild fed and ruminants with the water. Completely safe. So it works because most people have antibodies to this. If I never had consumed eggs in my life, the cheap ones, I would now be able to consume the egg yolks from those animals with zero problems. But I have antibodies, so I can consume them without a problem. Why yolk? Because the clear has anti-nutrients, meaning it is not ideal. It has sort of a protection just like plants have, and seafoods like crustaceans and mollusks, including snails, also have these anti-nutrients which are not ideal. So that's why I'm saying the ultimate diet, when it comes to elimination, the ultimate eliminatory diet, is not just ruminants. Imagine you ate all your life horrible ruminant meat. You might be even intolerant to beef. But you might not be intolerant to other type of ruminant, and the same goes for example, a lot of wild fishes. Most people have had 3 or 4, but for example, sardines, a lot of people don't, because they never liked it, they never had in enough quantities to create a problem inside of them, and I believe they are all wild fed, to be honest. But you know what I'm getting at. For example, hake, you can buy hake medallions, because I believe hake is always wild fed. So for sure, a person that does well on the lion diet will have to do well in any sort of fish that only is commercialized in wild fed form. Because it's all about antibodies. Nobody out there except Dr. Lectins, from which I understood and I learned this antibodies reality. Nobody out there is understanding the importance of food sensitivity testing. Even if you are not as sensitive or as a person doing this, you should never be consuming foods that you're sensitive to, even if you don't realize. Most people are sensitive to eggs, even the people who have apparent very great health, because they consume too much cheap eggs, and the body realized the damage and it noted it. It took a mud shot of the egg protein. But typically, those antibodies actually are created because our gut is permeable, just like Dr. Lectins taught me. And that's why now you know why the lion diet works. But there is a bonus. I explained to you what is healthy. So why animals? Dr. Lectins, even though he says most plants have dispensed chemicals, he tells you to do a plant-based diet, which is rather incoherent. You see, we humans can't naturally absorb the fiber-locked nutrients in plant foods. That's why we cook. Herbivores can. Herbivores get the proper nutrition from plants and from seeds by fermenting the fiber inside. To ferment the fiber inside in our gut, we humans don't even have an organ for it. We only have a vestigial piece of history, we might say, which is our appendix, which, as the name suggests, is not a full organ. So we might be able to dabble in some fruits, as long as we don't have antibodies to those, and they are actually wild, meaning no sprays on them, they are organic or whatever. But still the fiber will ferment and it will create gas, meaning it's not ideal, and you will bulk up your stools. Even for herbivores, and cows thrive on plants, plants create bloating. Plants create a lot of bulking in your stools. So they burp and fart and poop a lot. You don't want that for yourself. So eat animals, the most nutritious foods for humans. And why are they adapted to us? Some books or some documentaries are saying that we don't have the teeth or whatever to break down animals. It doesn't matter your eyes or your teeth or whatever. I mean, first of all, we have predator eyes, prey up sideways eyes for the most part. But what matters is your gut. Cows or other ruminants are foregut fermenters. Others, herbivores like horses or ostriches, are hindgut fermenters. We don't have a foregut capability or a hindgut capability to do so. The proof that they are adapted to eat those foods is one, they thrive on them, we don't. And secondly, they are naturally inclined to do so purely instinctively. A cow will go onto the grasses and start munching them as raw and bitter as they are. Maybe they don't have the same senses as we do. Because if we go up to a tree and start munching on some leaves, just like koalas eat eucalyptus trees, we would find them horribly tasting. But if you go up to some raw meat from an actually healthy animal, you will see that it is completely different the case. It's actually pretty tasty. A lot of people have tried liver, but because it was not from a healthy animal, it was even maybe from a ruminant, but that was very terrible in their diet or their conditions, and it is kind of bitter, it doesn't taste well. But when you go for actually wild fed animals, you can and will enjoy consuming these as they are. Whenever you cook your food, you are processing it. And if you are eating plants or seeds, it is intelligent not just to cook them per se, but actually to ferment them so that you mimic an herbivore's gut. But still, it is not your biology to naturally consume those foods, just as it isn't for dairy or for honey or honey products. Milk is baby's food, and honey and its byproducts are bees or queen bee foods. When it comes to our proper human diet, if you cook it, you destroy the water-soluble vitamins because cooking reduces the water. You destroy the fat-soluble vitamins because you are completely processing, you are rendering the fat. And by only consuming these two parts, which is what the lion diet is all about, it is just consume steak of ruminants, just some salt and some water. Yeah, what about organs and marrow and blood? You will never feel optimally. Sure, you will probably feel better than any time in your life. Even people going from the standard American diet or anything as horrible or worse than that, going vegan to a whole foods plant-based diet, very well cooked, etc., will feel an improvement, even though it's a horrible diet for humans. But they went from misery. If you were in a middle ground, now you feel amazing. But no, if you ever wish to feel optimally, you will need to add this. And once you do, you can and should cut out the salt, because it is a supplement that even herbivores naturally inclined to leaking, because their diets are too pure in sodium and in chloride. But consuming it solely is always risky, because when you supplement, you risk overdosing. Thanks for watching.